And they all lived happily ever after. Did they now? Welcome to Check That Book, a special place where we get acquainted with the most disturbing books ever written. And this is me introducing you to the disturbing origins of what should be the least disturbing pieces of literature, because they're mainly for children, right? It is the origins of fairy tales. Now, I know, there's a lot of content regarding fairy tales and their dark origins, dark secrets, and meanings. There's plenty of truly decent channels on YouTube that tackle this. I, however, would like to just give you an overview and give you a head start if you're interested in this. I figured, whilst browsing through disturbing books, I figured, wait a second, one of the most disturbing things in my childhood were actually fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, and today's Sleeping Beauty, for example. I decided to start with this one since it's infamous, especially lately on YouTube. The theme has been going on for a while. There are countless of versions. Um, it's part of a rich oral and literal tradition that spans centuries and cultures. Um, it is actually impossible to pinpoint the number of how many times this story has been adapted and rewritten. But let me give you, first and foremost, a list of adaptations that I could find. Before we begin, however, Sleeping Beauty, also known as Aurora for our Western audiences. What was the story about? Well, if you've seen the Disney film, then you probably know that it is about a princess who gets cursed when she is an infant, mere baby, gets cursed by an evil fairy, right? And she's cursed to sleep for 100 years until true love's kiss wakes her up. That's the overall story for children. And Walt Disney did a great job back in the day adapting creepy fairy tales into watchable and even beautiful stories, not just for children but pleasurable for adults as well. It is a beautiful fairy tale, right? Well, originally, not quite so. Supposedly, it all started with an author named Giambattista Basile. The original story was called Sun, Moon, and Talia. It is the earliest written version, known for its dark themes, and we shall come back to it later. There is the softened version by Charles Perrault that removes much of the violence and focuses on more romantic and magical narrative of the story. Uh, this version, how includes the prince's mother, who turns out to be an ogress. No, not that one. Plotting to eat the princess and her children. Disturbing, yes, but not as much as the original. Let's continue. I have a list here. The Brothers Grimm, uh, Little Briar Rose. Sleeping Beauty has become such an I wouldn't dare say icon, but it is a theme, right? In some cultures, it gets confused. It gets confused with the Snow White. There is the Norwegian tale, The Princess Who Slept for 100 Years, the slightly more accurate one, and a Chinese folk tale, Liang and the Magic Flute, well, which includes themes of a sleeping maiden awakened by love. So romantic. Besides quite a lot of references in pop culture, there's the famous ballet, the famous Tchaikovsky's Sleeping Beauty, the music of which you're able to hear in the background right now. It's one of the most beautiful ways to tell a tale, I believe. But we're not here for that. We're here for the disturbing origins. So now that we've gotten these adaptations out of the way, and of course, I just named a few, there's much more. I'm pretty sure that in every culture all over the world, there is their own adaptation of this story, which is beautiful, which is nice. I mean, you can spread the word and remake the story. Unlike Disney's Sleeping Beauty of 1959, which is based largely on Perrault's vision, with some Grimm influences. By Grimm, I mean the Brothers Grimm, not the word Grimm. The original is very dark, and let me tell you this story now. Because fairy tales evolved through oral storytelling, numerous undocumented versions likely existed before the original Basile's written record. However, this is the original we know and love to hate. In the original by Jean-Baptiste Basile, I hope I pronounced it right. I probably didn't. That's called Sun, Moon, and Talia. Well, we have Talia, who is the Sleeping Beauty figure. She falls into the death-like sleep after a splinter of flax gets lodged under her fingernail. Yikes! That's painful already. Um, it fulfills a certain prophecy that the tale is about, sort of. While she's unconscious, we're getting at it. The king discovers her. He's overtaken by her beauty, and well, he does what any normal, adequate man wouldn't do. So he sexually assaults her while she's unconscious, and while she's still unconscious, sleeping, she becomes pregnant, and still unconscious, she gives birth to twins. While still asleep, yeah. One of the babies accidentally sucks the flax splinter out of her finger, though, and that wakes her up. That's the story. But of course, the king, who raped Talia, has a wife, naturally, and his wife, the queen, eventually discovers Talia and the bastard children, and she gets obviously very mad. Not at her husband for raping a sleeping girl, no, but at Talia. And she plots to murder Talia and her children, and she wants to cook and feed the children to the king. That reminds me of Titus Andronicus. It gives me Titus Andronicus vibes. Shakespearean influence everywhere. However, there is a sort of a happy ending, if you can call it that. The queen's plan has foiled, and the king burns her alive and marries Talia. Yay! This grim version highlights the patriarchal and violent elements that were later sanitized by Perrault and the Brothers Grimm in their adaptations, transforming Sleeping Beauty into the romantic fairy tale we know today. Well, this disturbing story, the original one, was supposedly written in 1634. It's dark and unsettling. Well, you heard it. You heard my retelling just now. And whoa, it has nothing to do with the child-friendly fairy tale that we know and love today, and nothing to do with Disney whatsoever. Disturbing aspects? Well, Like I've mentioned, it is not the prince that finds Talia, aka the Sleeping Beauty, it's the king. And taking the years that when it was written to account, the time period, I I can strongly suggest that the king is an older man, much older, because it was unfortunately kind of customary for older men to marry younger girls and well other stuff. So yes, it's an old man finding an unconscious girl and assaulting her. Not a kiss, not a true love's kiss here. She remains in the death like sleep afterwards, becoming pregnant, giving birth, all whilst unconscious. Wow, that's dark. That's some seriously dark stuff. And she's unaware of her violation. The grotesque twist of her giving birth to children whilst unconscious, it just, it's so deeply troubling here. I can't imagine this in real life. But then again, it is a fairy tale, albeit dark as heck. Um, Accidental awakening, yes. In recent years, there's been a few adaptations of the story where the awakening is not the awakening of the princess is not necessarily a kiss or a true love's kiss, specifically by a man. Well, we live in a rapidly developing or degrading world, and those some modern adaptations are so questionable that I'm not even sure that they're much better than the original by Basil. So yes, but we'll leave it at that. Also, after Talia awakens, the king returns sporadically to visit her despite being married. And this creates a love triangle, a very bizarre one, full of deceit and betrayal, further highlighting his lack of morality. So, yes, the king is basically just an abnormal, bloody pervert and a rapist who deserves to be put to death, in my not so humble opinion here. And but there's also a queen who, instead of blaming her husband and being downright shocked about what has happened, she decides to take her revenge out on Talia and her husband as well. But not because her husband is a sick individual, no, because of infidelity. Well, imagine that. And her cannibalistic revenge, albeit, is not brought to life in this fairy tale, but the very implication that this was her plan and this almost happened, this would have happened, that's enough. That's enough to make the story disturbing as all heck, besides the raping of a sleeping girl part, of course. The combination of rape, betrayal, cannibalism, implied but still, and gruesome executions makes Sun, Moon, and Talia, also known as the original story of Sleeping Beauty, the most disturbing, or, well, since I've just begun these new series, one of the most disturbing fairy tales ever written. There is no morality, and fairy tales should have a moral in them. I personally believe that fairy tales need to teach you something. I'll, whether you're a child or not, it doesn't matter. Of course, it should be understandable for children too, but a lot of adults should find fairy tales inspiring. There's a lot of wisdom in them. But these ones I'm going to talk about in this rubric on this channel, there's no morality, there's no moral code. They will be focusing on themes of power, violence, and control, and the disturbing in its various disgusting forms. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like disturbing content, consider giving this video a boost in the form of an erect thumb, and make sure to subscribe for more. I hope that you have enjoyed this new kind of episode, and let me know what you think about fairy tales. Would you read this to your child? I hope not. Watch the Disney movie instead, the original one. I thank you all once again, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.